Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Karena. I'm from 8th class, and in this video, I will explain about the text that I have translated into English. So I would explain two different types of text. First one is informative text, which I choose news article, and the second one is expressive text, which I choose a novel. So let's talk about the first text, which is the news article. Okay, let's talk about the headline first. Well, as you can see here, so for the headline, several changes were made to adapt to English journalistic style. The first change is the word mati, which literally means dead, but in the translation it becomes killed. This change make the cause of death more explicit and create a stronger impact, which is common in English news headlines. And the second change is the word order. In Indonesia, the phrase start with 58 orangutan Tapanuli di Indonesia, while in English it becomes 58 Tapanuli orangutans in Indonesia. This adjustment follows the normal noun structure in English. Also, in the translation, borrowing is used, like for the names Tapanuli orangutans and Siklon senyar. These names are kept unchanged to preserve accuracy and cultural specificity. Okay, then let's move to the second sentence, which I already highlighted with the green font. So this sentence is translated mostly through literal translation because much of the information remains unchanged, but several adjustments were made. First, the phrase badai siklon senyar become cyclone senyar. The word badai is omitted because the word cyclone already contains the meaning of a storm in English. And the second is the phrase sekitar 7% is translated as approximately 7%. This is a direct translation that preserves the original meaning, but the most important change in the phrase is jurang kepunahan, which in literally translation became the abyss of extinction or the cliff of extinction, but I translated it more simple by the extinction. So as a result, the metaphorical image is removed from the jurang kepunahan to just the extinction, but the core meaning is preserved. This makes the sentence sounds more natural and objective in English news writing. And then let's move to the next sentence. Angka itu bukan sekedar statistik. Ini adalah alarm bahwa kepunahan pertama kera besar modern bisa terjadi lebih cepat dari yang kita bayangkan. And the translation version is, this number is more than just a statistic. It is a warning that the first extinction of a modern great ape could occur sooner than we imagine. So in this example, I combine two short sentences into one sentence and connected it by a semicolon. This creates a smoother flow in English while maintaining the relationship between the two ideas. And another important change in this sentence is the word alarm in the original text. that I translated it to the warning because it's more common and sounds more natural. So this is an example of modulation because I changed the way the message is expressed while preserve the same meaning. And then the phrase lebih cepat dari yang kita bayangkan is translated directly as sooner than we imagine. This keeps both the meaning and emotional impact of the original sentence. And then the third sentence, pada akhir November 2025, siklon Senyar menghantam Pulau Sumatera dengan hujan deras selama 4 hari berturut-turut. And so go on. I think you can read it. So this is one of the biggest structural changes in the translation. In Indonesia, the information is presented in a single long sentence, but in English, I divided it into two shorter sentences, and this change improves readability because English journalism generally prefers shorter sentence structures. And the expression claim lives is also more typical of English journalistic language than the direct translation to the killed people. Then we move to the another sentence. Di balik tragedi kemanusiaan itu tersembunyi bencana lain yang tak kalah mengkhawatirkan. And translated into, yet behind this humanitarian tragedy lay another crisis that received far less attention. So this sentence shows a clear example of modulation. And we can see on the phrase tak kalah mengkhawatirkan that literally means no less worrying. So instead of focusing on how worrying the disaster is, I shift the perspective to public awareness by saying receive far less attention. So the focus changed from the emotional impact of the crisis to the level of public attention given to it. So although the wording changes, the main message remained the same, that the orangutan crisis was a serious problem that many people often overlook. And then the fifth sentence. Sebuah studi yang diterbitkan pada Rabu di jurnal Current Biology mengungkapkan bahwa 58 orang utan Tapanuli mati akibat peristiwa cuaca ekstrim tersebut. And translated to, a study published on Wednesday in the journal Current Biology revealed that 58 Tapanuli orangutans died as a result of the extreme weather event. This sentence is mainly translated through a literal translation. Most of the structure remain the same. For example, sebuah studi became a study, diterbitkan pada Rabu became published on Wednesday, and mengungkapkan to revealed. So, and the phrase peristiwa cuaca ekstrim tersebut becomes the extreme weather event. The translation sounds natural while keeping the original meaning. So from the peristiwa cuaca ekstrim tersebut became the extreme weather event and peristiwa. And the title current biology remains unchanged through borrowing since it's the official name of the journal. And then finally, for the final sentence, dari total populasi yang sudah kritis kurang dari 800 individu angka itu setara dengan sekitar 7% dari keseluruhan spesies. And the translation version, given that the species' total population is already critical low, fewer than 800 individuals, the loss represents roughly 7% of the entire species. So there is a several changes occur in this sentence. The source text began with population information and then present the percentage. So in the translation, the sentence starts with given that the species' total population is already critically low. This restructuring creates a stronger cause and effect relationship. And another important change is in the phrase angka itu setara dengan, which literally means the number is equivalent to. So instead of translating it literally, I use the loss represents, which is a form of modulation because the focus changed from a numerical calculation to the ecological impact of the loss. So as a result, the sentence sounds more natural and persuasive for English readers while maintaining the original meaning. So that's all from the informative text. Okay, then let's move to the second text, which is the expressive text. And I chose Andrea Hirata novel called Ayah. And the excerpt I use is a descriptive, literally passage about a quiet night. It focuses on a character named Sabari who is sitting alone on a veranda feeling sad and lonely. So when I translated it, I need to recreate the emotional effect and poetic feeling. And this is the biggest challenge actually, because literally expression often do not have exact equivalent in another language. So because of this, a completely literal translation is usually not effective. If we translate it word for word directly, the emotion, beauty, and artistic effect of the original text may be lost, and therefore the translator, which is me, must balance accuracy with creativity to make the text sound natural while still preserving its literary qualities. So I think let's talk about the first sentence. Malam senyap, tak ada suara kecuali bunyi kafilah-kafilah angin berembus dari selatan, menampar atap-atap rumbia, menyelisik daun delima, menjatuhkan buah kenari, menepis permukaan danau, merantik, menyapu padang, lalu terlontar jauh-jauh ke utara. And translated to the silent night, silence but the sound of south wind blowing against the thatched roof, rustling through pomegranate leaves, shaking loose the walnuts, skimming the surface of Lake Merantic, and sweeping across the plains. It then hurled itself far, far to the north. So this opening sentence creates a very strong image of the night through the movement of the wind. And one challenge in translating this sentence is in the phrase kafilah-kafilah angin, which literally means caravans of wind. But this expression sounds unusual and rather unnatural in English. So I focus on the meaning and effect of the expression rather than translating it word for word. So instead of using caravans of wind, I use action verbs such as rustling, shaking loose, skimming, and sweeping to show the movement of the wind and keep the imagery vivid. And another example is the word menampar-nampar. This word shows a repeated action, which is common in Indonesia through a duplication. But since English don't use this structure the same way, so I applied transposition and translated it as blowing against. This makes the sentence sound more natural in English while keeping the original meaning. And the second sentence, sesekali burung-burung pipit yang tidur di gulma terbangun, bercuit-cuit berebut tempat tidur lalu senyap lagi. Now and then, sparrows nesting in the weeds awoke, chirping as they jostled for space before falling silent once more. So, this sentence continues to build the peaceful atmosphere of the night, especially the phrase bercuit-cuit berebut tempat tidur describe sparrows waking up and briefly making noise before becoming quiet again. And I translated it as chirping as they jostled for space, and the word jostled matches the meaning of berebut in this context. And I also use the phrase before falling silence once more to maintain the quiet mood that is present throughout the passage. Next to the third sentence, meski tersembul di antara gumpal awan April, purnama ke-12 terang benderang, begitu terang sehingga Sabari yang duduk di beranda sedih, kesepian, dan merana dapat melihat kurat nasib di telapak tangan kirinya. So, although hidden among the April clouds, the 12th full moon shines through the darkness, shining so bright that Sabari, sitting alone on the veranda in his sad, lonely, and bewilderment, could clearly see the lines of fate etched upon his left palm. So in this sentence, the phrase terang benderang literally means very bright. However, to translate it directly would sound quite plain in the literally text, especially. So to make the image more vivid, I use amplification and translated it as shine through the darkness. Although the word darkness is not directly mentioned in the source text, adding it helps emphasize the brightness of the moon and preserve the atmosphere that created by the author. And this sentence also contains both emotional and symbolic element. First, we have phrase sedih, kesepian, dan merana. Highlight on the word merana expresses deep sadness and emotional suffering. So, in the translation, it becomes bewilderment. This is an example of modulation because the meaning shifts slightly from emotional pain to a feeling of confusion, while the general emotion is still present. Some original intensity is reduced. So in the translation, it becomes bewilderment. And this is an example of modulation because the meaning shifts slightly from emotional pain to a feeling of confusion. While the general emotion is still present, some of the original intensity is reduced. And another important example of amplification is Gurat nasib di telapak tangan kirinya, which becomes the lines of fate etched upon his left palm. So the press etched upon makes the image more poetic and suggests that fate is deeply marked on Sabari's hand, straightening the literary effect. And then finally for the last sentence, tangan kanannya erat menggenggam pensil. His right hand tightly gripped a pencil. This is the final sentence. It is short but still meaningful. And then another phrase is erat menggenggam is translated as tightly grip. And I choose the verb grip instead of holding because it sounds stronger and more expressive than simply saying was tightly holding pencil. And this word choice helps highlight Sabari's emotional tension and leaves a strong final image for the reader. So that's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.